So hello everyone. So as Jay said, I'm Shreya Katuwal and I'm a software engineer and co-founder of Rawa Software in BiheNepal. So Rawa Software is a software company and BiheNepal is actually our first product that we made through Rawa Software, our first own product that we recently launched. And since this is like a webinar about tech and startups, I'm trying to share my own experience and what I've learned through my journey. So I just wanted to begin with how I started my career in tech. So I actually began in my final year of college. I joined an internship at Jenny's, and there I started with learning AWS. And after a few months of learning AWS, I also wanted to get more into the programming side. So I learned Python, and I began working as a backend developer. And like I know in like any field, it's good to like everyone says it's good to be a master of like one instead of like jack of all, master of none. But I realized like from my journey, like learning a lot of different skills is actually really helpful when you're if you plan to do a startup, because like at the initial phase of a startup, it's very hard to like get find everyone of like every single thing that you need. So I realized if you learn several different skills, like it's very helpful like in the future. So I'll start off with what BiheNepal is. So BiheNepal is a matrimonial app for the Nepali market. And I started it out with my sister Shreya Katuwal. We began it in, we actually began the website in 2020, but like two times the website didn't complete and we began the app. I'll explain more about that part of the journey later. And we began the app in May of 2021. And as we continued it, we launched it for beta testing in November and officially launched it last February. And now we have around 40,000 users and 50,000 plus downloads. So the ultimate goal of BiheNepal is just to meet all Nepali singles worldwide on one platform. And with it, we've tried to also have an impact on society by create more compatible matches. We also like didn't put any caste filters compared to other apps of this type. So like with the thought that maybe we could help also like reduce caste discrimination. And we want to connect Nepalis globally, reduce forced matches, and all the free features are free, so it's easily accessible for everyone. So now let me start with how you can begin a startup, like how we started. So everyone is different and every journey is different, no matter what field you're in. But there are some things that are fundamental to everyone's journey. And like, it's not like a set roadmap, but there are a lot of steps that are similar that everyone has to go through. So the first step is it starts with an idea. So every startup, every business, everything starts with a problem and an idea to solve it. So coming up with ideas, sometimes I've heard people talk about how they want to start their own thing, but they're having a hard time thinking of an idea. So I got a few ways how we can think of ideas. So the first is nothing is original. There's a book called Steal Like an Artist, and even in that book, it says it very well how like nothing is new in this world. And I feel like even innovation, it's not creating something brand new. It's actually just like modifying and improving upon something that already exists. So you can just like learn from your environment, get ideas from there. And another phrase from that book is garbage in, garbage out. So most of our ideas come from what we consume. If we consume like the more we consume positive, more things like improving things, the better ideas that we can form ourselves. So try exploring cool things and things that you've never seen before. And like the internet has made it super easy for that. So think about the things you learn and like just as you think, like you'll realize your ideas will come to you naturally even when you're not thinking. And another step is write every single idea down. Even if it's a terrible idea, you have to write it down because then it's gonna exercise that part of the brain, I guess, when you have a lot to look through, a lot of your past ideas. And another major step is solutions to problems. Where there's a problem, there's always like a solution waiting to be found. And our life is super messy. There's so many problems in the world. So if we just try solving every single problem that we face in our life, whenever we have a problem, if we pause to think about a solution for it, that's where I guess some of the best ideas will come out. And another one is replicate. So especially in Nepal, there's so many things left to be done. And if we replicate an existing solution that probably doesn't exist where we are, that itself would be a great idea. And last but not least, not all ideas are good. Actually, very few ideas are good, but if you think of enough bad ideas, like at one point you'll have an idea that's good. And like try preserving the ideas that make you excited, because a lot of ideas that we might think are super great can get really boring the next day, or like the next morning we wake up and think, oh my gosh, that was such a stupid idea. So if there's an idea that keeps you excited even after a long time, then preserve that and execute it, because at the end of the day, ideas, no matter how good they are, they're not going to be important unless we act upon it. So now we have a problem and a solution, which is our idea. And the next step towards building that into an actual startup is customers. So who are the people that are going to be using or even needing the solution that we've created? And the best way to figure that out is by talking to people. So talking to people, it's like customer interviews. This is very important stage in a startup, because even if we have a solution, we have to find out who's going to use that solution and whether they're actually going to like it or not. And the weird thing is, like in our journey of BiheNepal, we actually skipped this part, because not skipped, but we didn't really focus on it, because first of all, we didn't really know about it. And like later we learned, but at the beginning phase, it just like completely went by our head. And it's something that we should have done, but thankfully, even though we didn't do it, I'm glad that it kind of worked out. So during customer interviews, it starts with it's actually customer interviews. It's not something that we do one time during a startup phase. We have to, even like after a company becomes extremely big, it's great for customer interviews to like, it's great for the company to keep talking to their customers, because at the end of the day, it's all, whatever we do, it revolves around our customers anyways. So at customer interviews, we do customer interviews to get an understanding of actually who they are. And when we do this, we have to talk more about their life and less about our product or what we're thinking about a solution for. And we have to ask them questions about like when they last faced the problem that we're trying to solve, and how they solved it, or if they even solved it. And if they solved that problem, like what tools did they use, or what solutions did they use. We have to ask about like any like competitors in the market that might exist. They might have used one of those. And something that we're never supposed to ask our customers is never ask them for features, because as founders, it's our job to think of the features and how we're going to solve the problem. We have to ask them to give us as many of their problems related to that topic as possible, not the features that they want. And another thing that we should never ask is how much of a price they're willing to pay for it. Because if we ask customers how much they're willing to pay, they're actually going to tell us how much they want to pay. And there's a difference between how much they're willing to pay and how much they want to pay. And like according to the value we provide, the amount they're willing to pay will increase. So it's important not to talk about that. And when we're doing customer interviews, it's always great to have a prototype ready. Like at the beginning stage, before we have our product ready, it's good to have a prototype so they at least know what the solution we're trying to provide them is like, and so they'll understand it even better. Or else they're not going to understand what the heck we're talking about at the beginning. So after customer interviews, after we do enough interviews, it's good to build a customer persona. So I learned this from a course at Stanford Seed. So a customer persona is basically it's like a fictional, semi-fictional representation of our ideal customer that we're trying to build a product for. So it's based on all of market research and actual data about our existing customers. And it's important to be able to, like customer personas are important to be able to understand our customer more. Like this is a sample of a customer persona for BiheNepal. So there's like a name given, Lively the Young Enthusiast. It's just a random fictional name. Why that segment of customers are important, who they are. Like for instance, for BiheNepal, one customer persona could be like young college graduates who are in their early 20s, and their needs. We have to decide their needs based on our interviews, how many in the population they are, to see if like we're solving the problem for like enough of a user base. And yeah, so this is a basic customer persona. And after we build this, it's going to be easier for us to build our product as well later on. So after we have our problem down, we have our solution, and we know who the customers are, the next most important step is building an MVP, a minimal viable product. So an MVP is pretty much similar to a prototype, but it's further along down the process of development. So it's more advanced than a prototype, but it's not a full-fledged product either. It's like the first version of our product that we're gonna take our MVP and share it with our first actual set of users. And a lean MVP is it's like a very basic version of an MVP. So it's like it can be built very quickly. There's like very basic features. It has limited features and functions. It represents our product in general, but the features are very limited. So it won't take a long time to build. And so we only put the most important features in the MVP. So an MVP is important because if we spend too much time trying to build a perfect product, and if we try to like launch a product that's super perfect, then it's gonna take way too much time, and like the market will already have moved on, and it's like timing is super important when doing a startup. So it's best to build a very simple product and just like put it out as soon as we can. So like the main importance of an MVP is so we can release it as fast as possible. So as when we release something like this super fast, it's going to be easier for us to like talk to our customers better and know what kind of feedback they would give, what kind of response they have for such a product. Because until we put a product in front of people, they won't be able to get an idea of what we're doing and whether, and we won't get an idea of whether our product will actually even work or not. So whether it'll even solve the problem or not. And when we release an MVP, it also like gives us more responsibility to keep going, and like it won't let us slack off, basically. So some MVP examples are Amazon. Amazon's, maybe a lot of people have heard of this. Amazon started out as an online bookstore. So Jeff Bezos just he bought books himself, sold it online, and like he even delivered everything himself. And once they realized that it was actually going to work out, people would buy books online. Then they were able to add more products and increase the business. And Airbnb, it started out as like the founders, they rented out their own apartment to see if people would actually like book a service like this. And once they found out that that would work, that's when they moved on to building a bigger business. So once again, MVP, the importance is to release it as fast as possible, because if we like when we're running a startup or what building a product, it's like it can kind of be scary at first. Like we don't have enough faith in our product or ourselves at the beginning. So even with BiheNepal, I was like very reluctant to release our first version of the app. It was like I just didn't know what kind of feedback we would get, and I was super worried about bugs and everything. But once we release it, it just forces us to move faster. So with BiheNepal, we started development in May 2021, and we released it for beta testing. We actually, at first, we shared it with our friends and families, like really close people, to let them try out the app. And then we released it for beta testing in in November 2021. And that's when we shared it with like Facebook pages, Facebook groups, and also like Instagram. We did some paid advertising and Instagram boosting, and we got around 3,000 users in 3 months. So that was like our beta testing phase. That was like the product wasn't even perfect yet. There were so many bugs and a lot of problems. It helped us out a lot. So the next phase is value proposition. So this is basically why should customers buy our products? Like a value proposition tells our customers why they should even be interested in a product and why they should choose us over like the other competitors that exist in the market. So imagine if we're like face to face with any potential customer, we have to be able to tell them through our value proposition why, like they have to understand who the product is for and what problem we're trying to solve and why our product is going to solve their problem. There's a lot of nice templates for how to create value propositions. So it basically explains our product, what it does, the features, and the experience, like how does it feel to use our product. And it's also related to customer through our, it can also be related to our customer persona that we create at the beginning. It's like, what are the emotional drivers, like our customers' desires, what fears of switching to our product, if there's like already something that they're already using, and like what are the needs. So this is a value proposition, and after we have this, like especially when we're doing customer interviews, it's important to have a value proposition. So when we talk to the customers, they'll understand us more and they'll be able to give us better feedback. So throughout the startup process, it's important to just keep talking, collecting feedback, going back to our product and iterating. That's why startups, and especially this method, it follows agile methodology. So most MVP, when we create MVPs, we're usually following the agile methodology of development. So because we can create one phase of our product, go out, test it out, or even test it out ourselves, and instead of waiting for like the perfect launch for the perfect product, this method like gives us more space to improve and know what people want. So problem solution fit. So at this phase of a startup, we have our product, like a simple version of our product ready, and we talk to customers about it. That's when we'll know the problem solution fit, whether it exists or not. So it's about determining whether our solution and the problem, whether it's worth it to solve it, whether people actually want it. And instead of like sometimes like according to what I've read about and stuff, like sometimes we can be solving a problem like with so much intensity, like we're so focused on it and so passionate about it, but sometimes it ends up being something that the market doesn't really even need. That's when we know that we don't have a problem solution fit, like our solution doesn't even really fit the problem. And instead of spending so many years like working on it and finally failing at the end, it's better to like release a small MVP and then figure out the problem solution fit. So if there's no fit, we can move on to something else. We can try solving another problem. So launch. When we think of a launch, we think of something that is done just one time. But from what I've learned from like other courses and stuff, and even my own experience, it's not something that we just do once. Like a product has to actually be launched like many different times and for many different purposes. So like I said earlier, we also like first launch within our small circle of friends, and then we do the MVP launch once we have like a product that's worthy of kind of putting out into the market. And then we can also do different launches for new features, and it's good for also marketing when we launch again and again. So we did our official press launch on February 24th, 2021. And this was actually, we weren't actually fully prepared for this, but like things happened according to the circumstances. We accidentally had to like launch earlier than we planned to. But looking back, it actually became a good thing that this happened because it actually helped like drive us forward, and like we got feedback that we weren't expecting. So this was actually a positive thing. And this is after our launch. Immediately afterwards, we gained quite a lot of users than we expected from like different places around the world. And currently, 3 months later, we have 45,000 plus downloads on Google Play, and around like by now we have like 15,000 plus on App Store. So after launching, like after an official launch and stuff, we can realize product market fit. So this comes after the earlier problem solution fit. In the product market fit, it describes like whether our target customers are actually gonna like buy or use our product, and whether the business will actually sustain, whether the market is actually demanding for it or not. So this is if we don't get product market fit, then I guess we're gonna have to move on to another startup. But it's this is a very important stage where we know whether our startup will work or not. So this is a short timeline. It starts off with the idea, concept. So product market fit is this validation stage. If there's product market fit, we can continue to scaling our startup and establishing like a proper business model and running it. And after product market fit, we can go to like the growth stage. But if there is no product market fit, it's best to like iterate or pivot our idea into something that the market would demand more. So yeah. So let me just I'll give a short explanation about how we've been moving our startup, how we started and how it's been going. So we actually started in 2020. That was our first attempt, and we started off with I had actually watched a speech by Simon Sinek a long time ago, like 10 years ago, and it had really impacted me, like how he talks about how we should start everything we do with why, like focused on why instead of like what and how. And I also read the book called Start With Why. So because that impacted me, we also like decided to start our BiheNepal with like why we actually wanted to do it. And this is like a very important factor when it comes to motivating ourselves, because sometimes when you feel like giving up, this like stops you from giving up. And the first attempt, it was our first project that we had done like this, so we were absolutely like unsure of what to do. We had no idea what we were doing, so we just did like a basic feature planning, and we hired someone else to build a website for us. Like during this time, I was in a job, so I didn't have time to develop it full time either, to work on the startup full time. And this was our first attempt, but it failed this time because first of all, we had no idea what we were doing. And like when you're not involved in your own startup full time, this is what I learned from my experience. Like you don't give it enough attention. Like that's what I did. I had a job, so I didn't give it enough attention, and like I wasn't as invested in it, so it stopped. Like our website completely failed. The second attempt, it happened after a few months. We planned everything again, and this time we followed a little more of the proper steps because we had learned a little bit from our previous time. So we did the UI designing, and we did a short. We interviewed like 20 people and did a qualitative analysis. We asked them like whether they would use something like this or not, and then after we had a better plan than before, and then we went for building a website. So this time around, I was still in my job too, so I didn't really pay much attention, and this also failed. And this is a picture of a plan we had made on a chart paper. And this is how BiheNepal looked like at that time. It was like a website. We hadn't even designed it really well. Like we didn't know about proper user like experience and everything. So that failed. And then our third attempt was in May 2021. So we pivoted the idea from a website to an app. And that was based on like we realized that people use apps more than websites. And then we had better planning, and like we followed better structure this time because of the experience that we gained from the past two times. So we planned the project requirements, features, and everything. And then like did UI UX, started the development path. This time I had left my job to work on like my startup full time. So this time I also worked on the development myself after planning the features. I so the development path was first I designed the database, and then I worked with my friend Prakash in the. He worked on front end, I worked on back end. So we made the APIs, and then front end was React Native, back end is on Django REST framework even now. And then after developing it, we deployed on AWS and continued doing testing. We tested ourselves and then like improved upon it, and then released it for beta testing, and then the launch that I previously showed. So yeah, so I talked about the launch and everything. After the launch is when we gained more users and got more front end developers, and now we're still working on it. We still have like a lot of things that we have to improve upon in the app, and there's still so many features that we want to do. But like right now, I'm also still learning and doing it as I go, and trying my best so far. So yeah, so I just want to end off by saying start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can, because at the end of the day, it's all about like it's all in our hands. So if we really want to run a startup and like solve a problem, then we just have to start immediately. So yeah. Oh, another important part of startups is obviously getting investors and stuff, but we haven't gotten that yet, so I'm not as qualified to talk about it yet. And this is my presentation. If there's any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Shreya, for your entire journey. So what we have shared about Nepal. So yeah, I have one question, but before that, I have given the permission for all, so you can unmute yourself and you can directly ask to Shreya. So my first question is that why did you choose the application of means going in a Django framework means with a Python, right? So there might be another stack also. So why did you choose with this one? So yeah, can you give a brief about it?
So there's several great stacks for developing, obviously, but I chose Django because actually I worked on Django. I learned during my when I was like working at an office at Janice, I learned Python and then Django. So since that's what I was experienced in, I chose Django so I could develop it myself instead of hire someone else. So that's basically why. It's not because like Django is better than anything else. It's just because that's what I knew.
Okay, that's nice. And about the cost, so how do you plan? So means for developing the app, it might cost or use amount, right? So how do you plan for cost estimation?
So the financial side is more overlooked by my sister than me. So I'm not really into that side, but we you have to we learned that we have to like budget properly, and also like as I said in the beginning, how it's good to learn a lot of skills yourself. Like at the initial phase of the startup, it's really great if you can do a lot of the work yourself. That saves a lot of the money. Um, yeah, so budgeting really well and planning properly, I guess, so you don't waste time and money on features that aren't important or like things that are gonna go to waste. You just have to like plan super well, from what I've learned so far.
Okay, okay, that's nice. And can you explain more about the beta testing? So how do you miss what type of framework do you use for the testing tool? So for mostly for the QA, right? So it will be helpful. Yeah.
For QA, actually, we actually tested it ourselves. We're not QA testers, so we just did our own like testing. We didn't follow like certain frameworks. But later, like once you expand and stuff, I guess it's better to hire professionals for QA testing and everything. But for till now, we've been doing it ourselves.
Okay.
So,
Okay, thank you on that part. And basically, most of the application are deployed on the AWS, right? So for a startup, means there might be the DigitalOcean or there might be the Azure. So basically, are you planning to go on those type of cloud infrastructure, or you will be engaged on AWS only?
yeah, these days, like, there's a lot of great cloud platforms. I heard even Huawei is very affordable for startups as well. But for now, I feel comfortable with AWS because first of all, it's very secure, and also like even because I'm used to working on AWS, it's like it feels very comfortable and like all the services that they provide it's like easy to set up even for startups. Like although the cost is expensive for startups, you can also get like startup credit and stuff that you can apply for even on their website. So for now, we're not planning to shift to another cloud yet, but maybe in the future, after we look into other alternatives, we might. But right now, we don't have a plan to move to other cloud services yet.
Okay, thank you on that part. So we have one question by Bibekji. So he's mentioned he was curious about how does the startup make the revenue?
So right now we're operating on a freemium still. I mean, like a free model. So we haven't monetized any of the features yet, and that's why right now there's no revenue. But we have some business models that we planned, and we're going to launch very soon. So we have a VIP club. That's one aspect. It's where users get extra features as well, and they're also gonna have like it's gonna be all screened users. So all of their documents and everything will be screened properly, and we're also gonna host like in-person events, so it's easier for them to meet each other. So that's one thing that we haven't launched yet, but it's gonna be launched very soon.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, if anyone has the question, you can speak or you can type on the chat box. So yeah, so to basically Shreya is today free, so you have got the opportunity to directly talk with her. So yeah, just unmute yourself and ask anything related with the startup. Anyone? Just I want to know, Miss, for a newcomer, right? For a new guy, they want to, Miss, they want to build a startup company. So how do you suggest? What are the steps? So which you have mentioned on your presentation, right? But behind that, what are the steps that needs to be considered while creating a startup company?
The first step that that I feel like was more important even in my experience is committing yourself full time to it. Like sometimes we tend to think that, oh, I'll work part time and it's still gonna work out. I feel like if you're working on your startup part time, you're not going to give it as much importance. And if you're not fully focused on it, no one else is going to be, since it's your startup. So the first step is like leaving everything else and just working on it, committing to it full time. Because working in a startup, it's not like a 9 to 5 job. You're going to have to be thinking about it like 7 days a week, even when you're at like, even on Saturdays, on weekends, like there's no day off. You're either like stressing about it or working on it. So that's the first step. And next is to like find a group of people that you can work with well, that you get along with. So because like a lot of ideas, they bounce off of people, and when you find the right group of people, you're going to be able to think of better things to do and work better. And yeah, I guess that's my main advice. Just finding a right group, committing, focusing on it completely, and planning properly. So like there's a lot of, when you're running a startup, like there's no one to tell you what to do, or like what you're supposed to do, so you have to figure it out all by yourself. So it's good to have a nice plan. And sometimes even if the plan fails, like sometimes backup plans also work.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah, so we have one more question by Sandesh. So yeah, great to see you, Sandesh here. So he has asked that I would be great to know if MVP, minimum viable product, is enough to know that your product fits to the market or not, because there are lots of cases where business run smoothly for about 4 to 5 to 1 year, then everything uh, goes on decreasing. So means it basically says that every startup fails after 2 or 3 year, right? So it's what are the steps to continue for a long term? Yeah.
Thank you for the questions on this. That's a very nice question. So an MVP, I think in most cases, I don't think an MVP will actually let you know whether you have product market fit or not, because product market fit is like, from what I've learned, in some places, it says how like product market fit is when there's such an overflow of like suppose it's an app and its users, like there's such an influx of users and stuff that you have to completely just focus on keeping your application online, because it's that difficult, because there's like that much demand for it. So I feel like after there's product market fit, I feel like in most cases the business will run smoothly, because I don't think in most cases you'll find out in 4 to 5 months. But after there is product market fit, I'm sure there's still a case of startups failing even then, because there's so many other aspects that are also important. Like funding is a huge aspect. Sometimes there might be product market fit, but maybe you don't have enough funding to continue the service properly if it's a free application or something. And maybe like other factors also affect it, I guess. So yeah, but after there is product market fit, I'm pretty sure that you'll realize that the problem is that your solution is a good one, and that it's, if you continue working on it the way you are, and like marketing properly and everything, then I guess I don't think it would fail after that. But it's also, luck is also a huge factor, so I'm not sure. I'm just speaking based on my experience and what I've learned from other things. So I hope I answered the question.
Okay, thank you for that one. We have next question by Vivek ji. So, did you hire a digital marketing, or at the initial stage, or make marketing out to consumer? What was your cash burn up for marketing?
So we actually didn't hire a marketing team until very recently, and we, like at the beginning, even like until our official launch, we were marketing ourselves. We were like creating the ads ourselves, and Canva was a very helpful tool. We just sometimes we would just like sit down for like, we would set 2 3 days apart and just like brainstorm different ideas and think of different like when you just focus on the marketing part for a while, like different ideas will just keep coming. So that's what we did, and we just did the digital marketing ourselves and made ads. So we only hired a digital marketing team to like try it out after the official launch, like the month before last. And yeah, so we didn't really burn much cash at the beginning for marketing. And even now it's like we're but other than digital marketing, a lot of cash goes for the boosting, Facebook boosting and everything. That's where a lot of the cash goes. So even besides the content creation, like we have to separate a pretty large amount, maybe like around 40% of cash just for the promotions and boosting and everything.
Okay, thank you for that one. So I have one question that just like in your app, right, on Behave Nepal. So how do you get the feedback that what is required, what type of features is required? So how do you uh, get the requirement? So what tool or what methodology uh, means, or what type of technique are you following to capture those type of requirement?
For to plan like future features,
Yeah.
like app features
Yes.
for the
Yes.
so after our launch, a lot of the times, like we've been getting messages on Facebook and even like emails from our users. Like they've been like, especially at the beginning, one of the main ones was we had like the user profile verification system. We had a manual system, and that was like impossible for us to carry out because after there were a lot of users, it was impossible to manually verify each one of them. So like for that, we got a lot of messages and stuff like people saying that they wanted to be verified, why they weren't, and based on that, we developed a face verification feature where the user profile verification would happen with face recognition. So that way we didn't have to do it manually. And a lot of the times, a lot of features come from users like that. They send messages and they tell us what they want and what would make that better. That's a major way that we've been doing it. We've been developing new features, and another one is just like it. Just sometimes like new feature ideas will just come to you, and yeah, that's how it's been going so far. With ideas that have just like popped up ourselves or ones that users have been telling us.
Okay, and do you follow the change control? Just like, so you are working on some sprint, right? I think you told about Agile, right? So you are working on a sprint. So and something change came. So how do you manage that change? So you put that into the sprint, or you miss after completing the sprint, you work on that part?
If it's a change related to the current one that we're working on, then we'll add it in. But if it's not related to that, the particular, because we try to like focus on one feature at a time, especially like even through we're following this method. Like when we focus on one thing at a time, then it finishes faster. So if it's related to what we're doing, then it will. Otherwise, we'll do it in like a next sprint.
Okay, and so how costly is for a change, for for a change one? So how, so yeah, because it will affect the scope as well as the time, right? So
Yeah. So that depends on how big of a change it is.
uh,
Like if it's something that's like super big, like the face verification thing, or if we did have some changes in that too while we were working. If it's something related to something like that, then it will cost more. But if it's like something a little more minor, like while we're working, you'll just know, right, the size of the change and how much time it might take. So yeah, it's based on that. There isn't like a set
okay.
value
Okay,
price.
thank you for that one. So we have more one question by Ritik J. How do you handle legal part of the company? And thank you for your insight. Yeah.
Um, so for the legal part, we're working with a legal team. We have a lawyer who's like very helpful. And so right now, like they're working on the legal part. So it's that part has been very easy for us since we haven't had to handle it ourselves. And also, since this was like a matrimonial app at the beginning, we were kind of worried that there might be legalities related to it. But our like the legal team, they just like went around and went to like Nepal's government places and everything to understand whether there's any laws related to this. And apparently, like so far, there aren't any laws, so we're allowed to do things. smoothly. And another part I forgot to mention earlier is, if before you launch a product, we learned that you have to actually trademark it first, because we actually did the official launch without trademarking BiheNepal. And later, when like our lawyer went to get the trademark for it, there were already two people in line who were about to take the trademark for BiheNepal. So if he hadn't gone fast enough, then like all of that launch effort and everything would have pretty much gone to waste, because then like the name BiheNepal wouldn't be ours anymore. So that's just a small piece of advice.
Okay, thank you so much. So we have more 3 minutes to end the webinar. So if you have any question, then you can talk or you can type, right? So there is one more question by Nisanji. Nisanji, so how do you manage security risks in BiheNepal app?
To manage security risk, we've consulted with a really expert team who looks at security, and also we're also working with a few people who are very like experts in managing security, especially on AWS, because that's a very important part, and they've been like handling that for us.
Okay, that's nice. Yeah, and can you share some of your plan about BiheNepal? Just like while I was also using BiheNepal app, right? I saw BIP Club like
Yeah.
that something thing. So can you explain what is that and how the audience can benefit from that?
So VIP Club, it's like a small exclusive community within the app itself. So we didn't put like any subscription models or restrictions on the main app in order to like allow everyone to use it like freely. And VIP Club is just for a small community who want a smaller pool of people to choose from. And like once they pay the money, we're gonna verify their education, work, identity, everything. All of that is gonna be verified. So it's gonna be like 100%. They're gonna be able to trust in the users that are in VIP Club, and there's also gonna be like in-person events and meetups. So it's gonna be increases chances of people being able to find a match. So that's what VIP Club basically is, and it's gonna launch. We're trying to launch it pretty soon. So if anyone is interested, you can register.
Yeah, that's good to know. And basically, what is the difference between your app as well as the international app, right? So there are Tinder, there is other app also, just like I think something called from D. So
Yeah.
yeah, so what's the difference? So basically, this is the local app which we all know, right? But means what is your aim for developing this app to Nepal for your
So Tinder, like as we all know, Tinder is more focused on like short-term relationships and flings instead of like actual commitment basis. So we wanted to make BiheNepal like an app. Even according to the name, it says Bihe on it, so people won't come here for like short flings and stuff. Hopefully, and we just want to set it for people who are actually looking for commitment, whether they're trying to date or get married immediately. As long as they're in it, like it's going to be a commitment basis. And also we realized that in Nepal it's still not normalized to have like there isn't a normalized platform. There wasn't where people would just like as soon as you think about having to get married, like there wasn't a platform that people directly went to. So we thought that was kind of a gap, and that's why we wanted to like kind of bridge that gap.
okay? Thank you so much. So someone has just raised the hand. I think Ritesh. Uh, I was speaking on that time. So if you have question, then you can speak, right? So I have given you the permission to unmute. You can speak. So we have one more question by Vivekji. If you were to start again, what would you do from brainstorming to company re-registration till launch?
um, if we were to start again, I don't when I think about it now, like I don't think I would do anything differently, because even like the mistakes that we've made and stuff, it's actually helped us learn a lot. And something I noticed, um it's like it's weird, but something I noticed was how even sometimes we have like a set plan for ourselves that we think like we have to follow this plan or else like it's not going to work out. But most of the times, like whenever that plan that we set for ourselves doesn't work out, like we learn something and actually something better has ended up happening so far. So um, I don't think I would really change anything. But
Uh,
now there's a lot of as I go forward, there's a lot of ways that I would like to work differently. But from the past, from brainstorming till launch, I wouldn't. There's not much that I would do differently now, I guess. It's like and something else I learned is like you just have to keep doing whatever is in front of you. Like even if sometimes you take the wrong step, it's like it's gonna be end up for the better. So yeah, I don't
okay,
know if I made sense.
yeah, that's nice. Okay, thank you. So we have in our QA session. So thank you for all of your question. It was nice, and thank you, Shreya, for your answer on that part. So anything which you like to say for our attendee about BiheNepal app?
Um, uh, Please check out the app and give us feedback. And also, please stay patient while we try improving it and making it better because there's so many places that we still have to work on, and we're trying to do that as fast as we can.
Yeah, and thank you. And I hope that you will be one of the mentor also, because in the startup we don't get lots of mentor, right? Mentor or mentee. So yeah, you are the role model of that one. So if anyone wants to contact to Shreya, right? Yeah, can you give your contact detail in here or something, LinkedIn? Yeah, thank you for that one. So yeah, you can connect with Shreya. So today we have 10 attendees. So thank you for staying till uh, 6:49. Thank you very much for that one. And
Thank you so much everyone, for your questions and
yeah, yeah, and that's fine. So yeah, so with this, thank you very much for all joining to today's session on Tech Webinar Nepal Series 43. And thank you, Shreya, for your time, for your means busy time that you have scheduled for us at today to give your presentation on startup and technology about BiheNepal app, and as well as whatever you have involved, right? So with this, I like to thank you, our supporters, Microsoft, as well as Impact of Kathmandu, and our media partner, Living with ICT. And thank you, Shreya, and have a wonderful day. Thank you.
thank you, Jay, and thank you everyone for joining and the questions.